my friends, a special edition of Riell Truth today. Special edition, my friends. My guest today is Nick Redfern. You know him, the author of more than 40 books. The books include Men in Black, Women in Black, 365 Days of UFOs. Nick has appeared on lots of TV shows, including BBC's Out of This World, the Sci-Fi Channel's Proof Positive, the History Channel's Monster Quest, America's Book of Secrets, Ancient Aliens and UFO Hunters, and the National Geographic Channel's Para-Natural. His new book out, The Roswell UFO Conspiracy, exposing a shocking and sinister secret. Nick, welcome to Riell Truth.
Hey Howard, how's it going?
I am fine, thank you. We got about a minute and a half before we hit our first break. Let's do the spoiler. What is the shocking and sinister secret?
Well, the shocking and sinister secret that aliens may not have crashed at Roswell, that it may actually have been an early test flight of an advanced vehicle in the post-Second World War era, when we were starting in the space race, so to speak, and rocketry, and that the whole thing may have been covered up under the cover of a UFO story to prevent the Russians, etc., from learning what was going on.
Now, what you're talking about in this book goes even deeper. You're talking about people who are experimented on by people in our government, and these, you theorize in the book, and we'll get into it in the next half an hour, these were the strange bodies that were allegedly found at the site. Is that right?
Well, yeah, the story comes from a variety of retired people within the official world who talked about how in the post-war era, the rocket programs, these huge balloon array programs that were being tested out in New Mexico at the time, some of them involved human subjects, human guinea pigs, so to speak, and that was the controversial aspect of why it was all hidden. Not just the advancement in technology, but the angle of it being sort of a dark and sinister secret.
Absolutely.
And again, another reason to sort of, hide what was going on.
Connected to the Japanese Unit 731, which we'll talk about also. If it's true, this would certainly be the darkest, the most disgusting thing that our government has ever done. We're going to get into it in the next half an hour. We're going to find out whether or not it is true, whether or not aliens are involved. Are there aliens or not? You're a guy who's made a career out of this stuff, the paranormal. And so I really want to know what you think. We're about to hit a commercial break. When we come back, again, we're talking to Nick Redfern, the Roswell UFO Conspiracy. It's Riell Truth. Go nowhere. My friends, the reason I had to say a couple of times that we're about to hit a break is because sometimes if I don't say it, the people at the radio station don't go to break. And I never know when the segment's going to end, and so I have to give them kind of a gentle reminder, just so you know.
And no warrant shall be issued but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the places to be searched and the person or thing to be seen.
The associates at your 24-hour Walmart Supercenter Lafayette remind you, no one anywhere is more noble, righteous, selfless, or courageous than our United States Armed Forces. These brave men and women and their families foot the bill for our freedom every day. Send a military care package today to let them know that they are in our hearts and our prayers and our thoughts. This message is from the associate at your 24-hour Walmart Supercenter on Highway 287 in Lafayette. They're on the air because they care.
If catastrophe struck, would your family be prepared? Are you confident you wouldn't react in a panic? Is there one place to get all of your emergency supplies? Ferris Survival encourages you to have confidence through preparation, not panic through crisis. Ferris Survival, located at 3366 South Broadway, is a professional, reputable, full-service business providing quality, realistic preparedness supplies at an affordable price. Go online, stop by, or call 303-781-0343. Ferris Survival.
Okay, we're back, my friends. Special guest today, Nick Redfern. His new book, The Roswell UFO Conspiracy, is exposing a shocking and sinister secret. Nick, I think Roswell is probably the best-known UFO story there is. Crash in June 1947, allegedly alien bodies at the scene. The Army collected, the Air Force collected debris, odd metallic substances. Someone came out the next day and said, we recovered the UFO. There was a big storm. Then they walked it back. The Army swooped in, and who knows exactly what happened. What else do we need to know about the basic Roswell story before we go forward?
Well, yeah, basically what happened was that in early July 1947, in Lincoln County, New Mexico, which is, ironically, it's actually about a 2-hour drive from Roswell where the object came down. And the reason why it's become known as the Roswell UFO crash is because the town of Roswell was the nearest town that had a military presence that could go out and recover it, and the materials were taken back to Roswell.
Right.
So that's how it's become known as the Roswell UFO crash. But Lincoln County, where the crash actually occurred, as I said, it's quite a drive from the town of Roswell. But the event happened on what was called the Foster Ranch, and the rancher that ran the place at the time was a man named William Mac Brazel. And Brazel woke up one particular morning to find all this unusual wreckage strewn across the ranch in a distance of about 600 feet. And it sort of superficially looked like balloon-type materials, this sort of foil just lying all over the place. And even the sheep wouldn't go past it. It was just so dense. And this was just 2 weeks after the first flying saucer report on June the 24th, 1947 by a man named Kenneth Arnold. So there's a lot of talk and hysteria and, mentioning the newspapers of flying discs and flying saucers, as they termed them back then. What are they? What's going on? And Brazel wondered if what he'd found was actually the remains of a flying saucer. So he went into town and told the local police authorities. They then called the Roswell military base, and the guys came out and found this strange material. They picked up as much as they could. It was just like a small unit went out to start with. They went back to Roswell and basically said, we think we found the remains of a flying saucer, because they couldn't figure out what it was.
Right.
Now, of course, back then nobody really knew what flying saucers were anyway, because the phenomenon had only been around for 2 weeks. And so a press release was put out saying that the base had recovered the remains of a flying saucer. And of course, it actually became worldwide news immediately. The local news offices in Roswell were getting calls from Hong Kong, from London, from all over the place. And on top of that, what happened was, and this is what makes it intriguing, was that the very next day, the military put out the second statement saying, sorry, it wasn't a flying disc or flying saucer. It was actually just a weather balloon.
Right. Which they recanted decades later. The story was
literally forgotten and wasn't picked up again until the late 70s,
right,
when research really began into it. And as more time went on, the story became more controversial, with reports of not just this field of debris, but also a semi-intact aircraft of some kind and a number of strange bodies strewn around the area. Now, in the 1990s, when the 50th anniversary was coming around in 97, the Air Force came up with 2 other explanations. They said it actually wasn't a weather balloon after all, but it was called a mogul balloon, which was designed to spy on the Soviets in the early Cold War. And after years of saying there weren't any bodies at the crash site, they said, well, yes, there were bodies at the site, but they were crash test dummies,
right,
used in parachute experiments. So, with several different scenarios put forward, and, ufologists trying to figure out as well what was going on, you can easily see why it becomes sort of the most famous UFO case of all.
And the most titillating case.
Government, etc.
What's the case that you're making in your book, that these were people who had been experimented upon? Who were they, and what were the experiments?
No, they weren't people who'd been experimented on. They were people who took part in high-altitude balloon experiments.
Okay.
And also, basically what it was, at the end of the Second World War, just before the Japanese surrendered after the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the Japanese were planning to fly these huge balloons to the US, and in a worst case scenario, in like a kamikaze missions,
Right.
Huge amounts of bombs on board. But these balloons were gigantic balloons, and reportedly at the end of the Second World War, some of this advanced balloon technology was recovered when the Japanese surrendered and was brought over, and attempts were made to replicate these gigantic balloons that the Japanese were flying. And reportedly, some of the Japanese people who were working on the program were also brought over. It was a case of, work for us or you'll be prosecuted as, as war criminals, etc.
Right.
So reportedly, the Japanese scientists and technicians and pilots even came over. And the story that I got from now, the figure's now probably about 15 people who, old timers, if you like, from the military and so on, said that what actually came down was this gigantic balloon array that was which had attached to it like a lifting body type aircraft which could detach from it, and they were testing it, and there was some sort of accident where the two detached too soon, and the aircraft plummeted to the ground on the ranch because it was heavy, so it just came down.
Right.
This huge balloon, which was shattered in the sky, rained down at a very slower and different trajectory. So you had two crash sites on the ranch itself, which is what even the UFO believers in Roswell confirm. That there were two crash sites.
And do you believe after all your research that this is in fact what happened?
Because basically, it was like a collusion with Japanese personnel to fly this super secret aircraft, and in the immediate post-war era, there was kind of a reluctance not to admit to having, sort of working with the Japanese or with the Germans,
All right. We're just about to hit another commercial break. Do you buy that explanation? Is that what you believe actually happened?
Well, no. The way I've written the book is to sort of demonstrate to people that this is the story that old timers are telling. But as I point out in the book, over the years, there have been somewhere in the region of 10 to 12 theories have been put out.
All right, Nick, hang on 1 second. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk some more. The Roswell UFO conspiracy. My friends, this is Riell Truth. Stick around.
Now this is the testimony of John when the Jews sent priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask him, "Who are you?" He confessed and did not deny, but confessed, "I am not the Messiah." And they asked him, "What then? Are you Elijah?" He said, "I am not." "Are you the prophet?" And he answered, "No." The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 19 through 21. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America.
Piccolo's restaurant in Denver reminds us that over 750,000 children were reported missing last year. Over 58,000 of these were abducted by non-family members. Keep an eye out for youngsters at play, and if you see anything suspicious, contact the authorities immediately. This message from Piccolo's restaurant in Denver. It's not only the best Italian and Mexican cuisine, it's the people who care. Give them a call at 303-757-5166. 303-757-5166. Piccolo. Census uniform people in Greeley firefighters, that work in our community. We thank them for doing a great job in our area. They shop and raise a family. We realize their job is dangerous, sometimes dangerous. This message is from Census uniform people in Greeley. Call 352-2233. They're on the air because they care. And hired outsourcing America. Census the uniform people in Greeley.
folks, welcome back to Riell Truth. I'm Howard Riell. My guest, Nick Redfern, his book, The Roswell UFO Conspiracy, Exposing a Shocking and Sinister Secret. Nick, if this is the case, if the scenario you just laid out for us is in fact what happened, where do we get all the stories about alien craft being taken to Wright-Patterson, it wasn't called Wright-Patterson Air Force Base then, and back engineering, reverse engineering alien technology? Where'd those stories come from?
Well, yeah, this is where it gets controversial because you can look at it in one of two ways. Either, it was sort of a controversial experiment in the immediate post-war era using advanced technologies out in New Mexico, or an alien craft really did crash. Now, as I point out in the book, there's no shortage of accounts of people saying they saw alien bodies, and that the wreckage was, as you said, taken to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and then studied and scientists tried to replicate the alien technology. Now, either that story is 100% true or it's 100% not true. And of course, the big question is, which story or which of these stories is the correct one? Because over the years, there have been multiple different scenarios, not just this experiment angle or the UFO angle, but there's the theory that an atomic bomb was accidentally dropped by a military aircraft out in the New Mexico desert, and that's what was hidden. There are theories that it was a Russian spy plane that came down. There are even theories, more extreme theories, like time travelers from the future coming back to see what happened at Roswell, and they ended up being the casualties of Roswell, which is kind of an interesting little theory, But
I'll make a good movie. So out of all these theories, Nick, at the end of the day, when all is said and done, which one do you subscribe to?
Well, I think when you look at what was going on in New Mexico at the time, like early rocket tests, a lot of research into high-altitude flight and things like this, I think it can go just one of two ways. Either it was a military experiment or it was a UFO. I don't think there's really any room for any of the other theories. Now, the problem is, of course, Roswell's kind of like, the story of Jack the Ripper in the sense that it's a very old mystery with lots of threads and strands running away from it. But it's so old that, solving it is the problem. I mean, if you imagine you had a 21-year-old guy guarding the wreckage out at the ranch, right, and like I said, he was 21. Today, he would be 91. That's how long ago Roswell was. So the problem is not so much the testimony or the data that we've got, it's how do we solve something that is now 70 years old this year.
Right, it's like from the cold case file.
Everybody's having, it's not so much what we believe or whatever, or we don't believe, but how do we prove it? And unfortunately, proving it has proved to be the biggest problem.
Absolutely. What's the connection with the Japanese Unit 731, which you mentioned in your book?
Yeah, well, Unit 731 was an organisation that did sort of controversial research to try and figure out how people would be exposed to things like high-altitude exposure, things like this, because even in the Second World War, a lot of research into extremely high-altitude exposure wasn't really known that well. But, of course, with the advent of rocketry and things like this, scientists needed to know how people would be exposed and how they would be affected by flying extremely high in the atmosphere, and also when we finally get out of the atmosphere. And so Unit 731 was doing a lot of controversial work in the field of high-altitude exposure, and reportedly that some of the files were brought over when the Japanese when they surrendered. A lot of the Unit 731 material was brought over, the files. You can actually go read them now at the National Archives in Maryland. They've all been declassified, and you can actually get to handle the original documentation, which was translated from Japanese into English. And again, it was sort of this angle of the controversy of having the Japanese on board with this program to learn what they knew about high altitude exposure. That was sort of the big one of the big concerns, how people might react to the fact that work was done with the Japanese. Now, there is like a similar example of this when Hitler committed suicide and the Germans, surrendered. A lot of the German scientists came over to the US under a program called Operation Paperclip. And if you look online for Operation Paperclip, you'll find a lot of material on how the German scientists were brought over in the field of rocketry. But we had to do that because if not, the danger was they could have fallen into the hands of the Soviets,
right.
which would have been, just the worst case scenario. So it was kind of a similar thing, using these Japanese files, etc. And it was more so the perception of what might the public think, if they knew we're kind of, using Japanese technology just 2 years after the war's finished.
Understandable.
So which is understandable, It was kind of one of those things where, and again, this is understandable, nobody in the program really wanted to do this, but again, the fear was if all this material wasn't grabbed, that again, the Soviets would move in and grab it, and that might give them, a lead and a footstep ahead in rocketry, which could be disastrous.
Which was a very reasonable fear. In all the years that you've been involved in things like UFOs and aliens, all the paranormal, what's the single most convincing proof you can tell my audience of the presence of aliens on Earth? What's the one thing to you that's the smoking gun?
Well, what I would say, it's a lot of the material that's come through the Freedom of Information Act. I wouldn't want people to think I'm a UFO skeptic or debunker. I'm not. I'm just not sure that Roswell was part of the UFO phenomenon. But, if you look at a lot of the files that have been declassified through the Freedom of Information Act from people like the Air Force, the Army, the Navy, FBI even, a lot of their files from the late 40s and particularly the early 50s tell stories of, and bear in mind, these are officially declassified files. They talk about sightings of saucer-shaped craft and military pilots chasing them, and they're being tracked on radar at the same time. And these objects performing all sorts of incredible maneuvers, like left and right-hand turns at incredible speeds, which would be impossible for us, with the G-forces. And I think if we were flying something that could perform like that in the 50s, we would have seen it used, on the battlefield, whether in like Korea or, Vietnam, etc. So it's these cases where you have credible sources like military pilots, radar operators saying they tracked these things, they saw them. To me, that is strong evidence that there is a genuine UFO phenomenon from somewhere,
Makes sense. Makes sense. Again, I'm asking you for your best judgment. If aliens are here, are visiting the Earth, why? What's their rationale? What's their modus operandi? Why are they here?
Well, that's one of the big questions,
You're the expert, Nick. I need you to give me the answers.
I know, but we always still have to remember, though, that, UFO, the U still stands for unidentified, The day when they become IFOs, identified, flying objects, we'll know. But, the things to look out for is, we've never been attacked and destroyed in kind of like a War of the Worlds Independence Day style.
Right.
But we've never had like a landing on the White House lawn where they've said, take me to your lady, and they'll cure all the problems in the world. It very much seems that whatever they're here for, it's for their own ends. And saying hello to the human race is not part of that agenda for the most part. So, it could be just sort of a scientific exploration just to watch the natives and see how long they can exist without destroying themselves, It could just be something that simple that, in the same way that we go out into the jungles, of Africa and we study animals and we watch them and we tag them. Maybe it's just something like that,
A few months ago,
ego. Very often we think, well, if aliens are coming here, they've got to be coming here to see us.
Right.
Maybe they are coming here to see us in a way, but not in kind of like hi, welcome kind of approach. It may just be we're the equivalent of, an ant or a cockroach to them.
It may well be.
And nothing else.
A few months ago, I had a guy named David Jacobs on the show. He's written books about alien hybridization programs, that they're coming here to fuse their DNA. Does that sound reasonable to you?
Well, it's controversial, but it does sound reasonable in the sense that, if you look at a lot of things we're doing today with gene splicing and things like this, and there's all research is now being done, to see if, a human fetus, a growing baby, could actually be grown inside like an artificial womb where a pregnant woman wouldn't have to go through 9 months of pregnancy, which, I don't think that's necessarily a good thing because, there's that bonding process between the mother and the child. Right. But what this demonstrates is that if we're sort of going down these weird pathways and programs of genetics, then if there's somebody from out there that's been doing this for thousands of years or tens of thousands of years, then the idea of sort of alien human hybrids or some sort of genetic program abducting people and taking DNA and cells, that kind of thing, is actually not out of the question when we see that, we're starting to go down that path as well.
Yeah, I guess the most outstanding question, the one that people are wondering about the most, is what's with Giorgio Tsoukalos's hair?
Well, it's hard for me to comment on hair because I shave mine up every day. I mean, down to the bone every day. But I guess that's Giorgio's trademark. Kind of everybody recognises him by that. So
is it fun appearing on ancient?
Standing up,
Is it fun? Is it interesting for you appearing on Ancient Aliens for the past several years? You've been one of their regulars. What's that like?
Well, yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, very often you don't actually meet anybody from the show. What happens usually is that a local crew near to where I live will just come out and film me, or I'll go to where they are,
right.
And then they film it, and then the footage is sent off to California where the show is based. So, it's kind of, usually I'll just drive to a hotel room, they'll film me, the footage gets sent off. That's basically how it works. So.
You guys ever get together, sit around in a bar over drinks and talk about Ancient Aliens?
Well, I mean, there's plenty of sitting around in the bar, but I mean, I'm one of these people who I like to have like a normal life as well, so I'm big into soccer and music, so, I'm one of these, I do the research into UFOs and whatever, but then I like to switch off and have a regular life as well. I think that's healthy. I don't think there's any, I couldn't think of anything worse than 24/7 investigating UFOs and having no life.
Well, do you do the paranormal for a living, or do you have a side job or a side career aside from this?
Oh, no, I mean, no one ever gets rich from writing UFO books, despite what some people might think. But I do a lot of just regular journalism stuff, music magazines and military history, that kind of thing. So, I do sort of a lot of regular journalism as well as writing books on everything from UFOs, Bigfoot, the Chupacabra, or whatever. So.
I love all that stuff. We have under 2 minutes before I got to let you go. What does the future hold? Is it possible to predict where the whole UFO phenomenon is going in the next few years?
Well, one of the big things that's been talked about a lot in the last couple of years is what's become known as UFO disclosure, and it's the theory that somebody within government or an agency within government is kind of gearing up to finally reveal the full story of what they know. And reportedly, this will be kind of like a worldwide thing where, sort of major nations on the planet will all come together and there'll be kind of like a huge press conference. And it'll kind of be like, okay, we've decided to come clean. Yes, aliens are are here.
Right.
We know about it. We've known about it for decades. And we've decided to tell you the truth. Now, that's a very controversial theory, but there are a lot of people in the UFO field who absolutely do believe disclosure is coming. I'm more cautious about the issue because, these claims have been going on for a while now and it hasn't happened. But I mean, it could happen. We could wake up one morning, and the press conference is just about to start. So, who knows what's around the corner.
Well, you are right. Once again, the book is called The Roswell UFO Conspiracy, Exposing a Shocking and Sinister Secret. The author, Nick Redfern. Nick, thanks very much for making time for us. We appreciate it.
All right. Thanks a lot, Howard.
All right. Be well. My friends, we're going to take a break. We'll come back with some real truth. Stick around. It'll be worthwhile, I promise.
All R&R Supply Incorporated in Fort Collins reminds listeners, every day our troops demonstrate their dedication to our nation. Now is the time for us to return the favor. Hire our returning veterans as well as those who have served in the past. After investing their lives in our nation, they deserve our investment in them. This message is from R&R Supply Incorporated in Fort Collins, and they're on the air reminding all of us that our freedom has never been free.
And of his fullness we have all received, and grace for grace. For the law was given through Moses, but grace and truth came through Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ. No one has seen God at any time. The only begotten Son, who is in the bosom of the Father, he has declared him. The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 16.
We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to ordain and establish this Constitution.
Elizabeth Lockerplan and Elizabeth reminds our listeners that the drug problem is well documented. We know our kids will be approached at early age. We want to applaud the youngsters in our community who have had the strength to say no to drugs. They provide examples to their peers and families to be the best they can be. That's from Elizabeth Lockerplant, located at 366 Grass Street in Elizabeth, serving our area since 1943 and specializing in naturalized aged beef and pork and complete custom process. Call 303-688-2240. That's 303-688-2240.
If catastrophe struck, would your family be prepared? Are you confident you wouldn't react in a panic? Is there one place to get all of your emergency supplies? Ferris Survival encourages you to have confidence through preparation, not panic through crisis. Ferris Survival, located at 3366 South Broadway, is a professional, reputable, full-service business providing quality, realistic preparedness supplies at an affordable price. Go online, stop by, or call 303-781-0343. Ferris Survival.
The associates at your 24-hour Walmart Supercenter in Lafayette remind no one anywhere is more noble, righteous, selfless, or courageous than our United States Armed Forces. These brave men and women and their families foot the bill for our freedom every day. Send a military care package today to let them know that they are in our hearts and our prayers and our thoughts. This message is from the associates at your 24-hour Walmart Supercenter on Highway 287 in Lafayette. They're on the air because they care.
All right, my friends, we're back. Howard Riell and Riell Truth. Once again, my thanks go out to Nick Redfern. He's written some really cool books. Go to Amazon and look him up. His new one, The Roswell UFO Conspiracy. Earlier this morning, a man named Roger Ailes died. Now, why that's important to you and why that's important to America, I'm about to explain via a colleague of mine named Rush Limbaugh, who was talking this morning about Roger Ailes. Here we go.
One of my closest and dearest friends and colleagues passed away at 6 minutes after 8 o'clock this morning here in South Florida. Roger Ailes, 77 years old. Roger and I were passengers in history. I met Roger in around 1990, one night at dinner at the 21 Club in New York. And my life was never the same thereafter. There is, as we speak, and there has been for the past year, a barrage of slander and libel aimed at Roger Ailes by pissants who will never accomplish even 5% of what he did. These are people that did not know him, that prejudged him, that were jealous, people who were envious, and people who felt the need to take down a serious enemy who threatened what they consider to be their rightful hold on the media, on America, or what have you. Some of the things being said just today about Roger Ailes are absolutely untrue. Roger Ailes was not suicidal. Roger Ailes was not defeated. Roger Ailes was not destroyed. And Roger Ailes and his courageous and lovely wife, Beth, were not separated. These are things people wish that they had made happen. These are things that people wish they had caused. They wish they had destroyed Roger Ailes. They wish they had created marital strife. They wish they could have caused him to become suicidal. But he was not any of those things. I knew Roger Ailes. I've known Roger Ailes, as I say, from about 1990. And I could sit here and recount stories for you and give a eulogy of sorts, which I'm more than prepared to do. But I think the way I would rather do this, is to go back and replay some comments I made in a speech in honor of Roger back in 2009. It was in Tarrytown, New York. This was the Westchester Putnam Council of the Boy Scouts of America up in New York, and Roger was their annual award winner. And in addition to the roster of speakers, somebody from the Boy Scout Council reached out to me and asked if I would come up and make some remarks, and I was flattered and honored to do so. And I don't think we've ever played I'm not going to play the entire length of the remarks I made, but I'm going to play more than we have played in the past on the program here. Because what I would like for people to know is the Roger Ailes that I know, Roger Ailes that I knew, the brilliant, inspiring, motivating, compassionate, funny, the most naturally funny human being I have ever met. I've never encountered Roger Ailes in despair. Wouldn't allow himself to be. I've never been around him when he was fatalistic or even depressed. Quite the opposite. He had virtually every characteristic of great leadership, and he knew it. And he was aware of it, and he used it as best he could to try to get the best out of everybody that worked for him and worked with him. You'll read all the things about how he got started on the Mike Douglas show, essentially in the mailroom, ended up producing the program. You'll read about the stories of him taking over the campaign successfully of Richard Nixon and George Bush. And I have my own stories of Roger Ailes and American presidential politics, such as it's 1992. The first year of the Rush Limbaugh television show that Roger Ailes executive produced for 4 years. The television show had not yet begun, slated for fall production. That would have been in September. This happened to be in June. So I get a call. Roger says, hey, we're going to Washington, pack a bag, we're staying overnight. And I said, what's going on? He said, we're going to White House. What? Yeah, we're going to White House. President wants to talk to you. What? President Bush wants to talk to you. Pack a bag and meet me so-and-so. So we flew to Washington. We were to have dinner at the White House with President and Mrs. Bush. When we arrived early on purpose, and we went to the Old Ebbitt Grill, which is a restaurant just across the street from the White House. I said, what are we doing here? We're having dinner over there. He said, no, we're not. They don't eat. They eat like birds. If you want dinner tonight, we're going to eat here, and then we're going to go over there to dinner. That's what we did. We had dinner at the Old Ebbitt Grill, chowed down, went over to the White House, and he was right. President and Mrs. Bush ate very sparingly. In fact, they served finger bowls after dinner for wash your hands. And I looked at it, I was kind of perplexed, and I didn't quite know what to do. Mrs. Bush looked at me with wide eyes, afraid that I was going to think it was soup. She was looking at me like, please don't. I could just see it in her eyes. So I sort of faked picking up a spoon and make it, no, it's a finger bowl. I knew. I'm just lightening things up. After dinner, we piled in a limousine. We went over to the Kennedy Center, where the president attended a performance of something or other. When the president arrived, everything stopped, and he's introduced. So was I. I'm so embarrassed I can't begin to tell you. Roger is off outside the spotlight. Roger's nowhere to be seen. He's there. He's in the same row, but he's off out of spotlight. The crowd's looking up. Same opinion I had. What am I doing there? We go backstage, meet the cast and the crew of the production, head back to the White House after it's over, in the presidential limousine, and discuss the presidential campaign of 1992. This is really at the peak moment of Perot. Slept that night in the Lincoln bedroom.
All right, my friends, I'm going to stop it there because we're about to hit a commercial break. However, because I love you, I've posted this on my Facebook page, Riell Truth Radio. You should go to it. The whole shebang is only 28 minutes and 17 seconds long. But Roger Ailes was a very important and influential man. He was the guy behind Fox News. Fox News is one of the very few places you're going to get some real truth in the media today. I mean, aside from Riell Truth, the radio show. What Ailes did was very important, very vital, very necessary in order to make America great again. And if that sounds familiar, you know where it comes from. We'll take a break, and we'll have some more Riell Truth, my friends. Stick around.
I'm here with the DuPont Pioneer team. So tell us, what are you bringing to the table to help producers manage feed costs?
Feed management is always on a producer.
Well, here's what the...
Sure is. So we take a whole operation approach to help them maximize feed value.
By combining the right products with our expertise and services, we can help producers improve profitability.
It's big picture thinking for big time production.
So work with your DuPont Pioneer team to get the most out of every bite. Pioneer, with you from the word go.
Was in the world was made through him. The world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own did not receive him. But as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of God, those who believe in his name, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 10 through 13. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just power from the consent of the governed. This is the America News Network.
This is the uniformed people in Greeley, police, firefighters, 9/11, work in our community. We thank them for doing a great job keeping our live, shop, and raise a family. We realize their job is dangerous, sometimes thankless. This message is from Sickness Uniformed People in Greeley. Call 352-2233. They're on the air because they care. And hired out in America. Sickness, the Uniformed People in Greeley.
All right, guys, welcome back. You know, the main story these days, it's not about Russia specifically, and it's not about a special prosecutor. The main story is the swamp fighting back against Donald Trump, who's trying to drain it. Last night, Sean Hannity on Fox News gave a wonderful account, a very concise and complete account of exactly who makes up that swamp. In other words, who are your enemies and your family's enemies? Who are the enemies of America? Here's Sean Hannity.
All right, we start tonight with the Trump-hating Washington Post. Now, last night they released a story saying that President Trump gave the Russian foreign minister and ambassador classified information while they were visiting the White House last week. Now, the story has been denied by Trump administration officials who were actually in the room. National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster said it was bogus. He said, quote, "I was in the room. It didn't happen." And Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, he denied the report. But that does not stop the destroy Trump media from running wild with all of this. Watch this biased, abusively biased, so-called news. It's really fake news coverage. Watch this.
The White House reeling from another Russia crisis, an unforced error at the hands of President Trump. The damage to U.S. intelligence interests is being viewed as incalculable this morning.
After this story broke here last night, we heard yelling behind closed doors. Here in this West Wing, Robin, this is a White House in chaos right now.
If true, this could be the most significant and dangerous mistake of the Trump presidency.
Hyperventilating breathlessness. We're going to have more on the Destroy Trump media's bias covered later in our news segment. It's called the Fake News Roundup. You don't want to miss it. But let's talk about the Washington Post for a minute. This is the same newspaper who has on their homepage the slogan, "Democracy dies in darkness." And just last week, remember, the Post reported the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, he was threatening to quit because of Comey's firing. Well, guess what? Rosenstein, and they cited anonymous sources, well, he spoke in an on-camera interview and he said, "I'm not quitting. I never threatened to quit." But that wasn't the only story the Washington Post got wrong last week. After Comey was fired, the Post reported this headline, quote, "Comey sought more resources for Russian probe just days before he was fired by President Trump," officials say. Well, guess what? Wrong again, because the acting FBI director, Andrew McCabe, when testifying before Congress last week, said he was unaware of such request, and he also went on to say, "We have plenty of money for this. We have adequate funding." So let's put the latest Washington Post fake news story into context. You got two stories they published last week dead wrong. Anonymous sources. They're losing a ton of credibility. And that fits into a much broader narrative that we have been dealing with almost exclusively here in the media on this show. The media is now so corrupt that their anger towards the president is now stopping them from doing their jobs. It's why I have spoken about changing the White House and how they handle the press. I've said they need to restructure daily briefings. Now, the Destroy Trump media, well, they turned them into nothing more than a dog and pony show. I explained this last night. The White House press team, they should develop a list of the top 15, 20 issues of the day. Let members of the mainstream media submit questions about them beforehand and afterwards, and they can have all their questions answered in detail and then ask questions from there. Also tonight, another massive breaking news story. Explosive developments in the mysterious murder of former DNC staffer Seth Rich that could completely shatter the narrative that, in fact, WikiLeaks was working with the Russians, or there was collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians. Now, if true, this could become one of the biggest scandals in American history and could mean that Rich could have been murdered under very suspicious circumstances. Now, according to former homicide detective Rod Wheeler, who's been hired by the Rich family to investigate the killing, newly discovered evidence shows that the 27-year-old former DNC employee was in fact communicating with WikiLeaks before he was gunned down in Washington, D.C. That was back in July of 2016, July 10th, while he was walking home. Seth Rich, shot in the back, left for dead. Police have been saying and characterizing this as an attempted robbery gone wrong. Here's a problem, and that's an odd explanation because, well, the assailant didn't take anything from Rich. They didn't take his phone, his wallet, his watch, his necklace. They were still on his person at the scene of the crime. And now, while there are several key questions about why Rich was killed, well, here's what we do know. 12 days, exactly 12 days after Rich died and was killed, WikiLeaks published the leaked emails from the DNC. And after Rich's death, WikiLeaks offered a $20,000 reward for information leading to the conviction of the person or the people responsible for the murder. And then, back in August, during an interview on Dutch TV, Assange implied that, in fact, Seth Rich was his source. Take a look at this.
Whistleblowers go to significant efforts to get us material and often very significant risks. There's a 27-year-old who works for the DNC who was shot in the back, murdered just 2 weeks ago. for unknown reasons as he was walking down the street in Washington. So
that was just a robbery, I believe, wasn't it?
No, there's no finding. So
what are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that our sources take risks, and they become concerned to see things occurring like that.
But was he one of your sources then? I mean,
we don't comment on who our sources are.
Why make the suggestion about a young guy being shot in the streets of Washington?
Because we have to understand how high the stakes are in the United States.
That's pretty profound. Now, this new information is also consistent with what Julian Assange told me back in January when I asked him specifically, did Russia give him any of these emails? Now, keep in context here, in all the years WikiLeaks, 11 years, they've never been proven wrong. Watch this. Did Russia give you this information or anybody associated with Russia?
Our source is not a state party. So the answer for our interactions is no.
And there you have it, my friends. Russia had nothing to do with the leaks in the DNC, but I feel very confident in saying that the people who killed this guy Rich were connected in some way, shape, or form to the Democrat Party, to the Elect Hillary movement. They were the ones who were damaged by this guy's passing information to WikiLeaks, which he almost certainly did. The Democrats were the ones who were harmed by the revelations because the Democrats are the ones who have a lot to hide because the Democrats are the lying criminals. The Democrats are the sleazoid politicians who would do anything and everything, even kill a man. And if you don't believe me, go online and check out the Clinton body count. We'll take a break and we'll come back and we'll finish up for the week, my friends. More Real Truth ahead. Stay tuned.
Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirit, whether they are of God, because many false prophets have gone into the world. By this you will know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Yeshua, Jesus, has come in the flesh is of God, and every spirit that does not confess that Yeshua, Jesus, has come in the flesh is not of God. And this is the spirit of Antichrist, which you have already heard was coming and is now already in the world. John 4:1.
No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque or reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debt, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. Article 1, Section 10.
Piccolo's restaurant in Denver reminds us that over 750,000 children were reported missing last year. Over 58,000 of these were abducted by non-family members. Keep an eye out for youngsters at play, and if you see anything suspicious, contact the authorities immediately. This message from Piccolo's restaurant in Denver is not only the best Italian and Mexican cuisine, it's the people who care. Give them a call at 303-757-5166. 303-757-5166. Piccolo. Elizabeth Locker Planet Elizabeth reminds our listeners that the drug problem is well documented. We know our kids will be approached at early age. We want to applaud the youngsters in our community who have had the strength to say no to drugs. They provide examples to their peers and families to be the best they can be. That's from Elizabeth Locker Plant, located at 366 Grand Street in Elizabeth, serving our area since 1943 and specializing in naturalized HB and pork and complete custom processing. Call 303-688-2240. That's 303-688-2240.
All right, guys, let's finish up the week with a bang item from InfoWars. Former Representative Dennis Kucinich said Americans must put party politics aside and acknowledge that the federal government is, quote, under attack from within. Kucinich said the deep state within the bureaucracy is trying to destroy Donald Trump's presidency. He said there is a politicization of intentionally nonpartisan agencies that's resulted in leaks to the press and, quote, a threat to our republic. Kucinich called the damaging leaks against President Trump a clear and present danger to the American way of life. He called on the anonymous leakers to have the courage to name themselves. Our first allegiance is to our country, he added. Our country itself is under attack from within, unquote. My friends, I don't usually agree with Dennis Kucinich, who's a Democrat, but he's absolutely right. The people who are attacking Donald Trump are breaking the law by leaking information, and the only result could be damaging America, preventing Donald Trump from fixing all the grievously broken and shattered things in America that need to be fixed. These leakers, they don't love America. They love themselves. They need to go to jail. Item from USA Today. In the 100 days since President Trump signed an executive order to enhance immigration enforcement, the arrests of undocumented immigrants is up 38% from the same period in 2016, according to Immigration and Customs Enforcement data released on Wednesday. ICE Acting Director Thomas Homan said his agency is focusing on undocumented immigrants with criminal records, the bad hombres that Trump spoke about throughout his presidential campaign. But the data show that the biggest jump in arrests involved undocumented immigrants without a criminal record, a 156% increase from last year, unquote. My friends, you want to really make progress on drying up illegal immigration to the United States? I said it yesterday, I'll say it again. You pass a law that says any business found to have hired an illegal immigrant is socked with a $1 million fine. Nobody will be hiring illegal immigrants. Item from InfoWars, federal law and local law enforcement officers conducted 50 simultaneous raids in the pre-dawn hours Wednesday, taking down almost 24 high-ranking suspected leaders of the notoriously violent MS-13 street gang, along with numerous Mexican mafia leaders in what's being described as the largest gang raid in Los Angeles history. According to NBC News' local Los Angeles affiliate, the raids were the culmination of a 3-year investigation, in the words of FBI's Deidre Fike. Led by the LA Metropolitan Task Force on Violent Gangs, the investigation began in June 2014, targeting the most violent actors, most senior leaders within the violent criminal enterprise controlled by MS-13, along with their ties to the Mexican mafia. My friends, would anybody out there object if the police shot and killed these MS-13 members when they arrested them? Raise your hand. I don't see any hands. Item from Breitbart. David Bossie, the president of Citizens United and former deputy campaign manager for U.S. President Donald Trump's presidential campaign last year, told Breitbart News in an executive and exclusive interview that despite the media narrative, President Trump's administration is looking up and moving forward, unquote. My friends, that's what Trump does. That's how he became a global brand and a billionaire. He doesn't let the yammering, squeaking, screeching critics get in his way. He became president because he wants to do things for America, and he is doing them even as the liberals and the media and the deep state, they're yammering and making noise, trying to distract Americans. Donald Trump is busy doing. And people who do will always prevail over people who shriek. I'll be back on Monday with more Riell Truth. My friends, have yourselves a good weekend. Listen to me. Stay safe. Stay healthy. And stay angry.